Fix your self-concept ASAP to manifest. Everything stop for a moment and listen carefully, because the life you keep asking for may not require you to work harder, chase harder, or wait longer. It may require you to see yourself differently. Your self-concept is the identity you carry beneath everything. The story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible for you, and what you can expect from life. And if that inner story keeps saying, I am not chosen, I am always rejected, I never have enough, things never work out for me, or I have to struggle to receive what I want, then no amount of wishing can permanently silence that identity. But the moment you begin changing the person you believe yourself to be, everything begins to shift. Today, you are going to stop identifying with the version of yourself that has been waiting, doubting, chasing, and wondering when your breakthrough will finally arrive. You are going to recognize that you have the authority to choose a new inner identity right now. Imagine waking up and no longer questioning whether you are worthy of love. Imagine no longer needing constant reassurance that you matter. Imagine expecting opportunity instead of expecting disappointment, expecting abundance instead of anticipating lack, expecting respect instead of preparing for rejection. That is the transformation we are beginning today. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remove the limiting story that has covered the powerful version of you that already exists. Your circumstances are not the definition of you. Your past is not the definition of you. Someone else's opinion is not the definition of you. The old version of you does not have to remain your permanent identity. You can decide that from this moment forward, you are someone who is deeply secure, worthy, confident, loved, capable, abundant, and deserving of beautiful experiences. And when that becomes your dominant assumption, you stop moving through life as someone begging to be chosen and start moving as someone who naturally expects to be valued. So don't listen to this as another motivational speech that you forget tomorrow. Listen as if you are standing at the doorway between an old identity and a new one. Let the old story lose its authority. Let the doubts become quieter. Let the fear stop making your decisions and begin choosing deliberately and repeatedly the identity of the person who already knows, I am worthy, I am enough, I am chosen, I am supported, I am capable. I am becoming everything I have decided to be. Your self-concept is changing now, and as you change the way you see yourself, you change the way you approach your entire life. This is where the transformation begins. Your self-concept is not simply the way you describe yourself. It is the inner identity from which you live, choose, expect, respond, and interpret everything around you. Before you try to change your circumstances, change the person you believe yourself to be. So many people spend their days attempting to manifest a relationship, more money, greater success, recognition, confidence, or a completely different life while secretly maintaining an identity that contradicts those desires. They say they want love, but internally they believe they are difficult to love. They want abundance, but they constantly think, I never have enough. They want success, but their inner conversation says, people like me never get ahead. They want to be chosen, but they repeatedly imagine being ignored. The problem is not necessarily the desire. The problem is the identity standing underneath the desire. Your outer experiences are strongly influenced by the beliefs and expectations you repeatedly entertain within yourself. This is why fixing your self-concept is so powerful. You must stop making your current circumstances the authority over who you are. If today looks different from what you desire, that does not mean your future must repeat today. Your past experiences are evidence of what has already happened, not instructions for what must happen next. You are allowed to revise the story. You are allowed to stop saying, this is just how my life is, and begin saying, this is no longer the identity I choose. Think about how differently you would move through the world if you genuinely believed you were worthy, capable, loved, supported, and fortunate. You would not approach every opportunity expecting rejection. You would not interpret every delayed response as proof that you are unwanted. You would not constantly compare yourself with others to determine whether you are enough. You would carry yourself differently because your internal definition of yourself would be different. This is the real work, not desperately trying to force every external circumstance into place, but becoming internally consistent with the life you want to experience. Start noticing the labels you have unconsciously accepted. I am unlucky. I am always overlooked. Nobody stays. Money is difficult. I always mess things up. These statements may feel familiar, but familiarity does not make them permanent truths. They are stories that can be questioned, replaced, and outgrown. From this moment, choose a more powerful story. I am someone who is valued. I am someone who handles life with confidence. I am worthy of beautiful relationships. I am capable of creating meaningful success. I expect good things to unfold for me. You do not need to shout these words while secretly believing the opposite. Begin gently. Repeat them until they become familiar. Imagine how the secure version of you thinks when something goes wrong. Imagine how that version responds to uncertainty. Imagine how that version receives compliments, opportunities, love, money, and success without immediately wondering when it will disappear. Your goal is to make desired identity feel natural. The moment you stop defining yourself through old disappointments and begin identifying with the person you are becoming, you create a new internal foundation. And from that foundation, your choices change, your confidence changes, your standards change, your reactions change, and the possibilities you recognize begin to change. So fix the foundation first. Do not keep decorating an identity that you secretly want to leave behind. Decide who you are now, and return to that decision every time the old story tries to pull you backward. You are not required to remain the person your past created. You can become the person your future requires. Your self-concept is the foundation, and today you begin rebuilding it with intention. One of the most important steps in transforming your life is learning to stop identifying with the version of yourself that was built through disappointment, fear, rejection, lack, and struggle. Many people say they want a new reality, but every day they continue thinking from the identity of the person who has not yet received it. They wake up remembering what went wrong, replaying what someone said, worrying about what might happen, and using yesterday's circumstances as proof of who they are today. But if you continue carrying the same identity, the same expectations, and the same emotional story, you will continue approaching life from the same inner position. You cannot fully step into a new experience while constantly introducing yourself to yourself as the person who always loses, always struggles, always gets rejected, or always has to wait. The old version of you may have been necessary to survive certain experiences, but survival does not have to become your permanent identity. You are allowed to thank that version of yourself for carrying you this far and then choose to become someone new. Stop saying, "This always happens to me." Stop treating every setback as confirmation that you are unlucky. Stop allowing one person's rejection to become evidence that nobody will ever choose you. Stop allowing one financial difficulty to become the identity, "I am always broke." Stop allowing a past failure to convince you that success is not meant for you. These are interpretations, and interpretations can change. The moment you realize that you are the one continuing to repeat the old story, you also realize that you have the power to begin telling a new one. This does not mean pretending that difficult experiences never happened. It means refusing to allow those experiences to dictate the identity you carry into your future. There is a difference between remembering your past and living from it. You can acknowledge what happened without allowing it to become your definition. You can say, "Yes, I experienced rejection, but I am not rejection. Yes, I faced difficulty, but I am not a person destined to struggle forever. Yes, I made mistakes, but I am not my mistakes." This is where transformation begins. When you separate who you truly are from the old circumstances you have been carrying. Ask yourself a powerful question. Who would I be if I stopped using my past as evidence against my future? Maybe you would finally feel free enough to expect something good. Maybe you would stop checking for signs that things are going wrong. Maybe you would no longer chase people for validation because you would already know your value. Maybe you would take opportunities you once avoided because you no longer identify as someone who is destined to fail. Your new self-concept requires a new mental discipline. Whenever the old identity speaks, recognize it without giving it authority. When your mind says nobody ever stays, pause and choose, I am worthy of stable and loving connections. When it says nothing works out for me, answer, I am learning to expect better outcomes. When fear says you will lose this too, remind yourself, I do not have to live in constant anticipation of loss. At first, the new identity may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not mean false. Every habit was once unfamiliar. Every belief you currently hold was repeated enough times to become natural. So begin repeating a better story. See yourself as someone who is secure, supported, respected, capable, and worthy of receiving good things. Do not wait for the world to give you permission to become that person. Choose it now. Your old identity survives only when you continue feeding it with attention, repetition, and belief. The moment you stop rehearsing the person you no longer want to be, you create space for a new version of yourself to emerge. You are not trapped inside the identity created by your past. You can release it, outgrow it, and replace it. And the faster you stop emotionally returning to the old version of yourself, the faster you can begin living from the identity of the person you have decided to become. There is a powerful difference between desperately wanting something and naturally expecting it. Desire often says, I hope this happens to me someday, while a strong self-concept quietly says, good things are allowed to happen to me, and I am ready to receive them. This shift may seem simple, but it can completely transform the way you move through life. When you constantly feel that you must chase, force, beg, worry, or struggle for everything you want, you are usually operating from an identity that believes life is difficult and that good things are hard to receive. But when you begin fixing your self-concept, you start becoming someone who no longer sees every desire as something far away. You begin to see yourself as worthy of love, success, abundance, peace, respect, and beautiful opportunities. You stop treating your desires like impossible miracles that only happen to other people and begin allowing yourself to believe that good experiences can also be part of your story. Ask yourself honestly, what do you naturally expect when you wake up each day? Do you expect problems? Do you expect rejection? Do you expect people to disappoint you? Do you expect money to disappear as quickly as it arrives? Do you expect opportunities to pass you by? If your dominant expectations are negative, it does not mean you are doomed. It simply means that your inner world has been trained to look for certain outcomes, and what has been learned can also be changed. Begin training yourself to expect something better, not with desperation, not with forced positivity, but with a quiet decision that you no longer want fear to predict your future. Start telling yourself, things can work out for me. I can be pleasantly surprised. I can receive good news. I can be valued. I can be successful. I can experience love without constantly waiting for it to disappear. These new assumptions begin changing the way you interpret life. A delayed message no longer automatically means rejection. A temporary obstacle no longer automatically means failure. A difficult day no longer becomes proof that your entire future is ruined. You begin to develop emotional stability because you stop allowing every circumstance to define who you are. The person who naturally expects good things does not live in a fantasy world where nothing ever goes wrong. They simply refuse to make every challenge mean that life is against them. They understand that circumstances can change, people can surprise them, opportunities can appear, and new chapters can begin at any moment. This is the identity you are building. Imagine the version of you who genuinely expects to be treated well. That version does not constantly chase people for reassurance. Imagine the version of you who expects success. That version may still work, learn, improve, and face challenges, but they do not begin every opportunity by assuming defeat. Imagine the version of you who expects abundance. That version does not have to pretend that every financial concern has disappeared, but they stop repeating the identity that there will never be enough. They begin looking for possibilities, solutions, skills, and opportunities because their mind is no longer completely occupied with fear. This is why changing your expectations matters. Your expectations influence your attention, your decisions, your behavior, and the possibilities you allow yourself to see. So starting today, become conscious of what you automatically predict. When your mind jumps to the worst possible outcome, pause. You do not have to fight yourself. Simply choose a better assumption. Say, I do not know exactly how this will unfold, but I am open to it working in my favor. Say, I no longer need to expect disappointment before anything has even happened. Say, I am becoming someone who feels safe receiving good things. Repeat this until it becomes familiar. Your new self-concept is not built in one dramatic moment. It is strengthened every time you choose a better expectation than the one you carried before. Slowly, the version of you who expected rejection begins to fade, and the version of you who expects respect begins to emerge. The version who anticipated failure becomes the version willing to believe in success. The version who constantly feared losing becomes the version who feels secure enough to enjoy what is present. You do not have to wait for the perfect circumstance to begin expecting something better. Change your expectation first. Become the person who naturally believes that life can support them, opportunities can find them, love can feel safe, and success can become part of their reality. When expecting good things becomes natural to you, you stop living as someone waiting for life to disappoint you and begin living with the openness, confidence, and self-trust of someone who knows that better experiences are possible. Every single day, whether you realize it or not, you are having a conversation with yourself. It happens in the quiet moments, when you wake up in the morning, when some does not respond the way you expected, when you look at your circumstances, when you imagine your future, and especially when nobody else is around to hear you. That inner conversation is one of the clearest expressions of your self-concept because it reveals what you repeatedly believe about yourself and what you have come to expect from life. If your mind constantly says, I am not good enough, they probably do not care about me, something will go wrong, I never get what I want, or this is too good last, then those thoughts are continuously strengthening an identity built on insecurity, fear, and lack. You may want a completely different life, but if your private inner world keeps repeating the same old story, you remain emotionally connected to the version of yourself you are trying to leave behind. This is why you must begin paying attention to the voice you use when speaking to yourself. Would you speak to someone you love the way you sometimes speak to yourself? Would you constantly remind them of every mistake, predict their failure, question their worth, and convince them that nothing good will happen? Probably not. Yet many people do exactly this within their own minds and then wonder why they struggle to feel confident, secure, and hopeful. Fixing your self-concept means becoming aware of these automatic conversations and deliberately choosing a new direction. You do not have to become perfect, and you do not need to force yourself into unrealistic positivity every second of the day. The goal is to stop allowing your old thoughts to speak as if they are permanent facts. When the mind says, nobody chooses me, you can interrupt that story with, I am worthy of being valued and appreciated. When the old identity says, nothing ever works out, you can begin saying, things can change and I am open to better outcomes. When fear whispers, you are going to lose everything, answer with, I am learning to feel safe, supported, and secure. These moments may seem small, but repeated inner conversations create familiarity, and familiarity gradually shapes what feels natural to you. Think about the identity you want to build. If you want to become confident, what would a confident version of you say internally after making a mistake? They might say, I can learn from this and improve. If you want to feel loved and secure, what would that version of you say when someone takes longer to respond? They might say, I do not need to create a negative story without evidence. If you want to experience greater success, what would your successful self say when facing an obstacle? Perhaps this is a challenge, not a final verdict. Begin borrowing the inner voice of the version of you that you want to become. At first, it may feel unfamiliar because you have spent years rehearsing another identity. But every new identity begins as a choice before it becomes a habit. Your mind has learned the old story through repetition, and it can learn a new story through repetition as well. Start becoming the conscious author of your internal dialogue. Notice when you are mentally criticizing yourself, predicting rejection, expecting loss, or replaying painful experiences. Instead of judging yourself for having the thought, simply recognize it. This is the old self-concept speaking. Then return to the identity you are choosing now. Tell yourself, I am not required to believe every thought that enters my mind. I can choose the thoughts I repeatedly return to. This is where your power begins to grow. You are no longer completely controlled by old mental habits. You begin directing your attention toward a new self-image. The conversation within you starts changing from fear to trust, from self-rejection to self-respect, from lack to possibility, and from constant doubt to greater confidence. Remember, the most important voice you hear throughout your life is often your own. So make that voice a place of strength. Let your inner conversations remind you of your worth instead of constantly questioning it. Let them support the future you want, instead of endlessly repeating the past you are ready to outgrow. Every time you consciously choose a better inner story, you weaken the old identity and strengthen the new one. Your self-concept is being shaped by what you repeatedly tell yourself. So from this moment forward, speak within yourself as the person you are becoming, secure, worthy, capable, valued, confident, and ready to receive the life you have decided is possible for you. There comes a moment when you must stop waiting for your circumstances to give you permission to become the person you want to be. This is where true transformation begins. You can listen to motivational speeches, repeat affirmations, visualize your dreams, and make endless plans. You must make a decision about who you are choosing to be. Your new identity cannot remain something you only visit when you feel inspired. It must become the place you repeatedly return to, especially when life tries to pull you back into your old story. If you want to fix your self-concept and begin creating a different experience, you must stop asking, when will I finally become that person? And begin asking, what would change if I decided that I am becoming that person now? The identity you want is not waiting somewhere in the future for you to earn it. You begin building it the moment you choose different thoughts, expectations, reactions, standards, and beliefs about yourself. The version of you who feels secure does not have to wait until everyone approves of them before they begin practicing self-respect. The version of you who is confident does not have to wait until fear completely disappears before taking action. The version of you who expects love does not have to chase every person for proof that they are worthy. The version of you who experiences success does not spend every moment identifying as a failure simply because they are still learning. You begin living from your new identity before your external circumstances look perfect. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending that challenges do not exist. It means refusing to let temporary circumstances decide your permanent self-image. If something goes wrong, you do not immediately return to the old identity and say, see, I knew nothing ever works out for me. Instead, you remind yourself, this moment does not define me. I can respond differently. I can continue becoming the person I have chosen to be. That is how you remain loyal to your new self-concept. Every day gives you opportunities to choose between the old identity and the new one. Someone disappoints you. Do you immediately become the person who believes they are always abandoned? Or do you remain connected to the belief that you are worthy of healthy and respectful relationships? An opportunity does not work out. Do you declare yourself unsuccessful? Or do you remain the person who believes that one outcome does not determine your future? Money feels tight. Do you return to the identity of permanent lack? Or do you begin thinking like someone who is capable of finding solutions, developing skills, recognizing opportunities, and building greater stability? Your identity is strengthened through these choices. You do not need one perfect day to transform your self-concept. You need consistency. You need the willingness to return to your chosen identity again and again, even after moments of doubt. The old version of you may still appear in your thoughts because it has been practiced for a long time, but you no longer have to obey it. When fear says, go back to what is familiar, you can say, familiar is not always where I belong. When doubt says you have not changed yet, you can answer, I am changing every time I choose differently. When circumstances say, nothing is happening, you can remind yourself that your current moment is not the complete story of your life. Stop postponing your transformation until you receive the perfect sign, the perfect opportunity, the perfect relationship, or the perfect amount of confidence. Decide now that you are worthy now. Decide that you can respect yourself now. Decide that you can expect better now. Decide that you can think differently now. The life you want may require new skills, actions, patience, and opportunities, but everything begins with the identity from which you approach those things. So choose your new identity deliberately. See yourself as valuable. See yourself as capable. See yourself as someone who can learn, grow, recover, receive, and create meaningful change. Then live from that decision as often as possible. Let your thoughts support it. Let your actions reflect it. Let your standards protect it. Let your inner conversations strengthen it. You do not have to chase a new life while carrying the old identity.